This is an English oak campaign chest from the late 19th century. And if we look at the front, we can see the drawer configuration is a little bit unusual. The two short top drawers are really quite deep. And that gives us an indication that there's a very good chance that it's got a Secretaire drawer. And if we pull this drawer out, pop these two buttons down here, we can see that indeed it does. Now, Secretaire drawers on campaign chests came in a few different varieties. You get full length drawers which don't tend to be as deep as this. You get half length drawers. Sometimes you even get 3 drawers along the top, and the middle one is a small Secretaire. This one is quite nicely done. The show wood to the interior of Secretaire is veneered in maple, and we can see that the short drawers also veneered in maple with little ebony knobs, oak linings to it, as you would expect. Very nice Gothic arches to the pigeonholes. That's quite a nice little detail to it. And if we look at the escutcheons, this one is also a little bit deeper than the other round escutcheons. It's a little bit prouder, and that is because the lock on it is a Brahma lock. Again, fairly common for your top right hand drawer or your Secretaire drawer to have a much stronger, more expensive lock to keep your valuables secure. As you'd expect, it splits in half for travel. You've got 4 lugs, one in each corner to help locate the top. But when we do that, a curiosity is thrown up. And let's move you in a little bit closer so that you can have a better look. The timber that's been used for the top of the bottom section isn't oak like the rest of the chest. It looks like it's satin birch. Now, what was the reason for them using satin birch instead of oak? Well, it could easily have been a mistake, or it could be that perhaps they just ran out of timber while this chest was being made, and so they used what they had in a workshop. And satin birch is not a timber really that you see on campaign chests, but you do see it used on duro chairs and other folding chairs. So it could well be that this chest came from a workshop that was also making duro chairs. Duro chair is a standard campaign chair which was fairly common from the mid-19th century onwards with British Army officers. So that's quite an interesting, unusual point. Also good to see that the brass corners to the top here extend over, give an extra little bit of protection while you're moving it around. So let's just put this back. Now, oak campaign chests are not as common on the market as mahogany and teak, and the reason for this is probably because the demand was not as high, so less were made. We know that a number of companies made oak campaign chests. Certainly the Army and Navy store advertised them in their catalogues, but if you're going abroad, if you're a full-time officer and you're going to, say, India or the West Indies, then you wouldn't want an English wood like oak. You'd want something like teak or mahogany, which is going to stand up to the local conditions much better. So who would buy an oak campaign chest? Well, from the 1860s onwards, there was a huge surge in the volunteer movement in Britain. Militia soldiers who would volunteer, and a couple of times a year they would go off for training camps to a location with their regiment, and the officers would take a tent full of campaign furniture, just like their colleagues in the full-time army going abroad. So an oak chest, of course, for use in Britain or Ireland, very practical. So perhaps it was owned by a militia officer. Now originally this probably would have had packing cases. On the packing cases it would have had the officer's name and probably also the maker. That information has been lost with the packing cases, so we don't know. But what we do know is that it's a good looking chest, nice to have it in oak and also with a secretaire, and it's a good size. So to sum it up, it's English, late 19th century, difficult to be more accurate than that, could be 1875, 1880, 1885, somewhere around there, made of oak.